So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second live stream conversation. Really appreciate everyone joining us. I'm very excited about our conversation this evening. Over the years of being involved in Missouri Fox Trotting Horses, I have seen Mark's name a lot. We've chatted a little bit, but this is our first real life conversation. So I'm very excited to be able to have him here tonight to share some of his experiences and have him talk about building relationships with horses, as well as the Missouri Fox Trotting Horses cattle sense, and some of his experiences through the years. So welcome, Mark. I appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So before we get started, tell everyone a little bit about you, where you live, how you got involved in horses.
Well, I live in the bit up through Canyon Seat, Idaho. So we're as far west in Montana as you can just about get. For a lot of people that are watching, if you've seen Yellowstone, it's filmed right here. And in fact, Frank and I did a little Yellowstone work. Anyway, I got in horses late in life. Later, let me put later in life. I wasn't a kid with horses, although I rode a little bit. My wife got a hunter jumper when we were in Charlotte, North Carolina. After she did that, we decided to go. She lost that horse to navicular. A couple of years off, we decided to go over and take some riding lessons in South Carolina, where we were living at the time. And when we decided to move to Montana in 2000, the fellow we were riding with, who was a big saddlebred world champion, saddlebred owner, trainer kind of guy, said, "Get foxtrotters. They're a great trail horse." When we got to Montana, my wife brought a spotted saddle horse from South Carolina up here, and I was able to get in touch with the fellow who lived next to us over here at the Big Sky Ranch. He was their horse boss, and they had some foxtrotters, and they were selling them. And so I bought a beautiful Palomino mare and named, well, they called her Ingrid, but who the heck will call her horse Ingrid? So she got called Girl. So that's how I got into foxtrotters. Because as soon as I got Girl, we were walking through the county fair here in Ravalli County, and there was a Big Sky Foxtrotter Association. And they had that display, and they were recruiting. And I put my hand in there, paid the dues, and was involved with them for over 20 years. So when I've owned a horse, it's been a foxtrotter. Several, in fact.
Yeah. So I know early on, or some point in there, you started showing a little bit, and you were involved in sort of getting some of the versatility going in the foxtrotter world and the competitions in those. So share a little bit about that experience of showing foxtrotters and kind of watching that grow early on when that got started with the MFT-HBA.
Well, I've always done some kind of competitive thing. For a while, I was a professional bass fisherman, and I did things like that, race cars, station around or someplace. So I got over with the Big Sky Foxtrotters, and they have had, or I should say we, because now I'm part of it, but at the time they had a very, very big show. We had probably the largest show in the West, maybe the largest show outside of Ava. We had sometimes up to 90 classes. I got involved with that, and I didn't see a whole lot of, there wasn't a lot of fun in going around in circles for me. I mean, that just didn't do it. So we had this versatility deal here, and we always showed a lot of versatility. Big Sky Foxtrotter Association has been a leader in the versatility field. I got into that, got to be a part of the versatility committee there in Ava for a few years. Went down to Ava and showed in versatility several years. I think the first time was 2005, last time was 2012. In talking, one of the things that versatility has done for me and foxtrot and my foxtrotters is that I believe that versatility shows exactly what a foxtrotter is all about. It shows the versatility of the breed. We crown a world grand champion horse that goes on the front of the celebration book every year, and that guy showed in two classes, a qualifying class and the Saturday night class. Both were the same. They went around in circles. When we started having versatility in the back, in the arena back there, your versatility grand champion and eventually your ranch horse grand champion, they had to show in a bunch of classes. It was a much more well-rounded indication of the value of a foxtrotter, and it showed up in that there was some at times significant blowback from the front arena. In fact, they put graffiti on the restrooms back there, and there was some real pushback against versatility. But it morphed into people finding out, golly, I can go to Ava and have a lot of fun. I don't have to go down there and face going around in circles and people hooting and hollering and carrying on. I can go have a lot of fun with my horse, show it in with friends, was not as competitive. At the beginning, there was hardly any, that cutthroat stuff that goes on up in the front arena. It got to the point where versatility drew more competitors, more horses and competitors than the front arena did. I think it pushed the value, and it promoted the fox trotting horse to the public, to the non-fox trotting public, in a way that the front arena can't do. People who are looking for a trail horse don't look for that big lick, that pulling on the reins, canter business. They look for a calm horse that will take care of business, going through obstacles, and still being able to show a good foxtrot. And it was a lot of fun to see how many people gravitated back to the versatility arena. And I still have some really good friends that I met there, and I think that it was when celebration was at its peak, the versatility arena was a much better place to showcase the foxtrotter than the performance arena.
Well, one of the things I think is nice about our breed is there's so many options that you can really do with it. So the big thing I hear about you, and a lot of the pictures we see are cattle related, for those of you that have followed you a little bit. So talk to me a little bit how you got started doing cattle work with your foxtrotters and what your experience has been in that realm.
Well, where I live is very easy to get involved with horses and cows. When Don and I bought a place that had an indoor arena here, that led to being able to use our horses pretty much year round. And one of the things that I did was I was very fortunate. Don and I were very fortunate that when we first got here and first started looking around at events we could get involved in, I'd never heard of a horsemanship clinic when I got here. I didn't know what that was, but we went to one, and I was really, really fortunate. I got hooked up with this guy, Ty Heth, and Ty is a excellent horseman. He's probably one of the best I've ever been around. And he and I were able to have a pretty good relationship where he taught me a lot, and we were able to share arena time and work time. That worked into, hey, would you like to rope? And yeah, let's do that. So that progressed into, we got to have some cows. So we put some cows in the arena and we started roping, and that introduced me to a whole bunch of other people because I was the only guy on the foxtrotter roping. And we did these ranch roping contests, and that got me introduced to some other people. And then end up that I was able to go around and do brandings and gather cattle and sort cattle and work on the ranch. And so Frank and I have, and some of my other horses, now I'm just down to Frank, have spent a lot of time, and we're out yesterday working moving cows on the ranch, doing real ranch stuff, branding, doctoring. I'm getting old enough now that I can't hardly catch a cane cow, but roping and sorting, all the things you do on a ranch horse. And the one thing that shows out in using Frank and being around all these other guys on quarter horses is that there's no difference in the cowiness of a fox trotter and a stock bred horse. My Frank horse is not going to win any cutting contests, but he cuts as well as most. He's very good at sorting and cutting in the sorting in the alley, cutting out the calves. So we around here, we do year round. We don't do so much cowboy stuff in the winter, but like I said, we were out day 4 yesterday. We had new cows we bought and brought in and had to doctor and brand and move around. So what I found out, because I was a fox trotter owner before I was cowboy. What I found out was I had a horse, and so let's go do cow work. Well, can't do cow work on a fox trotter. Fox trotters aren't cow horses. Well, that's bunk. What I have found out, and I was talking to my wife about this a little while ago. We used to have a lot of cow work clinics when we had the arena, and what we found out was that their horses were just as cowy. They were equal to any stock bred horse. The main drawback of a fox trotter is that there are some fox trotters like my boy Frank, who's probably a third Tennessee Walker, and he's got this 30-inch overstride. I mean, it's ridiculous. He doesn't get his feet. He can't rock back so well on his butt, get on his back to make a real good fast turn like he needs to do. If we're just working the ranch, well, he's very adequate. Then he's better than a lot of these quarter horses. But we found that when you put the problem that people say, well, my fox trotter doesn't like cows, is not a problem with the fox trotter not liking cows. It's a problem with the way the horse was introduced to cattle. Because if you introduce the horse to cattle in the right way, they understand the pyramid of four-legged hairy people. And that four-legged hairy horse is above a cow. And as soon as they recognize that they can move that cow around, oh, it's on then. Don and I were talking, we had a horse named Wiley. His racer name was every cowgirl's dream. I put him in with I saddled him, put him in without a rider on him, in with a cow. And you should have seen him work that calf. He'd never been with one. And heck, everybody was standing out there watching. They said, "Look at that!" I mean, he was doing the rein cow horse stuff like a champ. So the problem is not that your fox trotter is not cow, is probably on your horse and not introducing the horse to the cow in the right way. Anybody, let's go. This will probably come up later on, but a horse is a horse. A horse is a horse. And just because it's got a kind of funny gene in him that allows his back end to move different than other horses and step way up high and overstride his track, doesn't mean he's not a horse. And if we go back and look at all these horses, back, say, let's go to the late 1800s, they all come out of the same outfit. I mean, the fox trotter is not some horse that was invented in the Ozarks. The fox trotter has been a fox trotter. Now they have, let me back up off that a little bit. The fox trotter in the Ozarks did a foxtrot that a lot of horses at the time were doing. Those guys were just smart enough to build a registry around what they had, and they did us all a great service. but there's been fox trotting horses forever. If you look at the books that Ben K. Green, he wrote some really good books. He was late 1800s, early 1900s, and he rode foxtrotters all the time. All the horses that came up the that came up all the horses came up in Wyoming, Nebraska, and the Dakotas bring those cows. Those were all those horses all foxtrotted. And when the quarter horse people started to registry, most of those horses foxtrotted, and they bred that gait out of them. They bred them to be a little shorter strided, and so you have to ride them like a pile driver. But we have a horse that is just as ranch worthy as any stock bred horse. And if you've got a foxtrotter and you think your horse is not cowy, get off of him and turn him in on a horse. On a cow.
So let's back up to that. Is that how you would normally introduce a horse to cattle for the first time, is just turn them loose in there?
No, the way I suggest doing it, and the way I found most effective, and there's everybody does it different, is I take a calf that's been around horses and has a bubble. You know, there's a bubble around the cow that allows you and your horse to get to a certain spot and then it moves off. I want a cow that's been worked by horses, so this doesn't at the first sight of the horse get right up on him. I want one that's got about a 10-foot bubble around him. I do it this way. I take the green horse and the green rider and myself and Frank and go into a 60-foot round pen is the least. I want about a 100-foot round pen if I can get it. And I'll have the green horse on my right side or my left side away from the cow and back at about his nose, about where my stirrup is. And as we walk forward, the green horse is very aware of that cow. And so I'll have Frank just walk up and move that cow a little bit, and the green horse will see that the cow gives way to Frank. And we'll do that a couple times here, and here's the real important part. Rider, put your hands on the saddle horn and don't grab that horse jumps. They usually grab the reins and get in the mouth, which tells the horse he's done the wrong thing. So after I've got that horse where it's seen Frank moving, I'll move him up where their noses are equal. And then when he comes up and the cow starts to move away, I kind of slow Frank up a little bit, and so that horse's nose goes out in front of Frank and he thinks he's moving it. At this point right there, if I have got the rider in position to be balanced on his or her horse, mainly her horse, and not trying to balance in the reins, that horse is liable to jump ahead and jump after that cow because it knows it can move the cow. And that's the most important time introducing a horse to a cow. When it first realizes, hey, I can control this something, I can run her around and move around. It's so much fun. At that point,
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. Mark, are you back? There you are. Oh, I lost him. We'll get him back on here really quick. I'll have him join in. Sorry, everyone. Just hang on. There he is. Are you back with us? Oh, I can't hear you, Mark. Oh, it's connecting your audio again.
Okay, there we go.
There we go. Sorry about that. Well,
So anyway, that's when I get the horse to go after the cow, when I get the green horse to go after the cow a couple times, then I'll take the horse out and pull. A lot of times, if I can do this, because riders sometimes they're actually the rider's the biggest problem, but I'll get the rider to come off the horse and pull the saddle right then. That gives the horse the understanding that he did the right thing. Not only did he do the right thing, but as soon as he did the right thing, he got this big release. He got the saddle taken off him. He gets to go stand over in the corner and watch somebody else do it. And then you wait about 30, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and he can go back in there, and I will go in with him again. But what I'll do is I'll let that green horse, be the leader. If he needs support, I'm there to support him, but then and probably 3 or 4 times to doing that, and you can do it all in one morning. You'll have the horse who's really wants to get the cow. Most of the time, if you have a horse that people say is afraid of a cow, what has happened is that as soon as he said, "Hey, I'm going to move over there," they got afraid they're going to fall off, or horse are going to run away, and they grabbed hold of him. And even if the horse turns and runs from the cow, you still don't grab a hold of him. You just ride it out, because sooner or later he's coming back to you. I've not met a horse yet. And again, a horse is a horse. I've not met a horse yet, when introduced right to cattle, won't eventually, over a short period of time, say, "I really like this." Fox trotters are no different than quarter horses or anything else. I've done. Well, I had a Pony of America Percheron cross that they used to bring timber out, where they couldn't take in mechanics in the mountains up here. And his name was Rex. We called him Rex Alina. He was so cowy that it was dangerous putting him in the cow, because you want to bite their butt and could actually take a hunk out of them. But if you've got a fox trotter and you want it to work cows, you can do it, and they're very, very effective.
well, that's becoming more and more popular in our breed, and so it's really exciting to see that grow and that interest. And I think we'll probably end up with a lot of questions about that, because people are really interested in getting started with cattle and doing that. So I know you're obviously you're up in Montana, which is beautiful, having worked up there. I can't imagine being up there this time of year. It's a little chilly, but beautiful area. A lot of people that I talk to, they want to go and do those things. Maybe they want to go try ranch sorting, or they want to go do those things. But they're always a little nervous about being that one person on a gaited horse. And you talked about being that person. So what advice would you give people when they go to something that's primarily stock horses, and you're bringing in a gaited horse to do that?
I tell them, don't smile too much, because you're on the best horse there. Getting overcoming the fear. I believe there's a stigma that goes along with the gaited horse. Oh, it's just a trail horse. It just goes around in circles or whatever. That's not true. People who want to get involved, working their cows and sorting or pinning or whatever they want to do. There's all kinds of cow stuff now, I guess. In fact, I think that cutting thing, that sorting thing is the biggest thing at the celebration now. But if they want to get involved with it, I spent 4 years in South Carolina, 2016, 2020, and there were sortings and roping and all kinds of stuff there. If you want to do it, don't think that those people, here's the deal. You don't drop out of the womb roping cattle. You don't drop out of the womb riding a horse. Everybody has to start somewhere. Everybody. So if you want to do it, there are people around all over the country, because particularly sorting is one of the biggest deals going. We have a sorting down here about 2 miles from me, and there'll be 500 trailers in there. It's just ridiculous. You can't even walk into the place. But there's people who teach this stuff, and my experience, I did some sorting in Arizona, some sorting in South Carolina, some sorting in Montana and Wyoming. You very seldom run into somebody that's rude, and almost always you're going to find a bunch of people there ready to help you. And just because you're on a gaited horse, you should just, it's like, oh, I showed up at the Sunday sports car gymkhana and all these little MGs and everything and ran around. I know, dang, I'm in my new Z06 Corvette. So that's how you kind of have to look at it. You're on the Cadillac. There's no reason to be shy about going.
All right, that's great advice. That's great advice. The other thing I know you've done over the course of your horse journey is some clinics, because I can remember you being in South Carolina and seeing some posts about some clinics and those types of things. So I thought we'd spend a little bit of time and talk about sort of building that relationship with a horse, and some tips for how people can do that, and sort of your philosophy on horsemanship.
Well, my wife said, don't ramble. So if I start to ramble, stop me. Because I could talk for an hour about how to hold a halter rope. My approach to horsemanship came from being introduced to what they call natural horsemanship, which I think is kind of a misnomer, but I call my deal gentle horsemanship. And it's, I was very fortunate to be able to ride with Ray Hunt and with Buck Brannaman and a couple other guys that teach this stuff or have taught this stuff. It revolves around building trust with the horse. I think that, well, first off, I changed my vocabulary. I had to change my vocabulary. When I have a student, one of the first things I say is, we need to change the vocabulary. There's no more make you can't use the word make. We're not going to make a horse do anything. We're going to ask a horse to do something. We're not going to train a horse. We're going to teach a horse. You have to understand that we're not in the business. I'm not in the business, I should say. I'm not in the business of using fear, pain, or intimidation to train a horse. That is a negative sum game. You can't win that. You can't win that. Horses are prey animals. They're 1,200-pound chickens. They're afraid of Walmart bag blows across the trail and a horse flips out. Predators don't do that. They go chase the bag down and eat it. So once people understand that your horse is always fearful, always afraid, and sometimes afraid of you, depending on how you approach it. So what I try to teach is that we have a responsibility owning a horse. And horses, they didn't choose us, we chose them. We have a responsibility of the horse to allow that horse to be as calm, relaxed, and having harmonious feeling. Let me do that. I just saw that movie last night. That as possible. To accomplish that, we can't be trouble, because the one thing the horse avoids is trouble. If we are the trouble, then they're going to avoid us, and that thing just feeds on itself. So what I try to do is say, you're never going to make a horse do anything. You can't make a horse do anything. You can beat it into doing some things, but I can guarantee you it'll never get a flying lead change by beating it into a horse. You can't beat your horse and expect that horse to run up and meet you at the gate. So what I try to say is this: I want my horse to find his happy spot. I want them to feel the best place for them to be is standing right beside me or with me on their back. If that happens, then I'll never have any trouble getting bucked off. I'll never have any trouble catching my horse. So what I'm trying to do is to show people that your horse is terrified of everything around it. And terrified is a good word, because you've seen horses just blow up and break in half over stuff that everybody goes, what? What happened? Well, if I can teach that horse that he can trust me to keep him safe and not be a trouble, but be just the opposite, be where he comes to me to be safe, then I've accomplished everything I need to do. Because once you do that, then you can use that horse any way you want to. What I try to teach also is that we are not training the horse to do something. I can't teach a horse to back up. I can't teach a horse to side pass. I can't teach a horse to turn on the rear of the front. And I can't teach a horse to chase a cow. They do that all on their own. Horses back up, like 20 minutes after this first stand, they're backing up. Well, I have people call me, can you teach my horse to back up? Well, no, I can't. He already backs up. What's wrong? What do you mean? So it's not that I want to teach a horse to back up. What I want to teach a horse is communication. I want to teach the horse that I'm going to ask us a question, and the proper response to the question is back up. So I have to ask the question, will you back up for me, in a way that he understands? And you can do it a million different ways, but most of the time it's by shifting your weight on your horse, maybe raising the reins up a little bit, not pulling on the reins, not pulling the reins, but just raising your horse, saying, I'm getting ready to ask you a question. Will you back up, add a little bit of just a bump, not even potato chip breaking bump on the sides with your legs, and wait for him to give me an answer. Then I don't respond negatively to the wrong answer, because they don't have a frontal lobe like you and I. They don't reason. If you and I are standing around, I point off to the left, you look. If you stand with your horse and point off to the left, he goes, well, he's going to look at you. He doesn't know what that means, because he can't reason. So what I have to do is I have to say, this is the question, and ask him with my legs or whatever, however I do it. This is the question, give me an answer. If he does give me the right answer, I say, okay, that's a good idea. I like that idea. Let's do that for a while. And then I'll ask him again. And sometime when he gives me the answer I'm not looking for, but it's his answer, his idea, I'll hold my ask. I'll hold my question and say, nope, that's not what I want. Then he'll say, well, if that's not it, let's do something else. So he'll do something different. That will move around, and that's what I call making my idea his idea, because I take his idea and make it my idea. When he, instead of backing up, he steps to the right, that was his idea, I accept it, make it my idea. Pretty soon, he'll work through all the different answers he can give me to my question, will you back up? And pretty soon he'll back up. Well, when he does that, if I haven't punished all these other things and he backs up for me, he thinks that was his idea, because it was. And if it was his idea to back up and I praised him, patted all over him, pulled the saddle off him, scratched his back, he's thinking, okay, I like that. So the next time he feels that question, because they can't hear the question, next time he feels that question, he's more likely to back up. So if you just progress, that's why this is not an approach that gets immediate results. But what it does is it builds a communication between the rider and the horse in such a way that there will be a time, and I say this, my goal is to have me sit on Frank or any horse and have you say, do this, whatever it is, and for me to do it, and you to say, how did you do that? And to do that, you and your horse have to become partners. You have to become one. You can't be jerking on reins and saying, oh, go off to the right, go off to the left. Yeah, I look left, I look right. When I look, Frank looks. And if you build that through effective communication, if you build that without stopping his ideas, if you reward his thinking, because they think, they don't reason, but they think. If you do that, then pretty soon you go, well, it's when I've got people that go through this and they go, they'll have that first time. You want to be there when I always want to be there when it's the first time.
Mhm.
And they look off and the horse starts going off and they'll look at me and say, dang, did you see that? That's what you want. That's exactly what you want. You don't want to have to drag them around like some old plow horse. You want to look off to the left and have them go to the left. Pretty soon, they do it before you ask them. Pretty soon, you just kind of think about it and they do it. And it's all because they feel your body and they feel the way you communicate through your hands and through your legs and butt. So I think if we change our vocabulary and take away make and put ask, take away train and say teach, and then think about what we're doing. Think about, what am I trying to accomplish here? If I'm trying to accomplish loading my horse in a trailer, then I can't beat the hell out of him and expect him to get in the next time. Because guess what? When I beat on him, he's looking in the trailer. Next time he looks in the trailer, he says, this is not a pleasant place for me to be. If I can have him walk up and get in the trailer all on his own, then he'll never be afraid of that. And, as you can see on a little self-promotion here, you can see on my Goss Horsemanship Facebook page, some loading them in the trailer, the way Frank loads in the trailer. And all these workhorses around here, all these ranch horses, they get towed and trailed so much you open the back gate and they all start walking over to get in. So it's a way of communicating with your horse that creates a trust, that then creates a partnership, that then creates a team that is the kind of thing that everybody who's got a horse wants. At least I hope everybody wants. And if you get to that point, when you get to that point, it's marvelous. I love it. But that's kind of what I try to do. It's a trust deal, and a lot of people don't understand that. And when you see somebody with a lunge whip or something beating on their horse, it breaks me in half. I can't stand it. So because you can get by, if you ever watch any of the Ray Hunt stuff, any of his videos, and you watch Buck work, they don't beat on horses. They don't beat on horses at all. And it's not necessary. And they get a lot more done. They get more done with less. And that's kind of what I want to do. I don't ever see a horse, regardless of what horse. I have yet to run into a horse, and I've run into a bunch of horses. I've yet to run into a horse I didn't like. When I get out of the truck, and I see that horse, I get out of the truck and this lady's called me and, I've got a problem with the horse. And I get out of the truck and I look at that horse and he's looking at me or she's looking at me. The first thing I want them to do, because the first thing they do when they see a new person is decide whether or not that person's going to eat them. That's the first thing they do. So in the first few seconds, my body gets soft and my mind gets soft, and I kind of smile at them and I'll say something real nice and kind of lean back a little bit away from them. And pretty soon, the lady says, well, he loves you more than me, because I can walk right up and hug the horse. But the reason is because I can walk right up and hug the horse. And I'm not trying to overpower them. I'm just trying to be with them. So that's kind of what I got going on.
Yeah. So from that conversation, it sounds like a lot of that philosophy for people, they need to learn how they need to respond and act with horses. So that example you just gave, sort of that being able to learn to be calm and soft and those things around the horses can really help build that ultimate relationship people are looking for.
Yeah, yes. In fact, I have yet to run into anybody that had a problem horse, but I've run into a heck of a lot of horses that had problem people. And it's not what it's not what the owner wants. It's not what the rider wants, but that's what the rider has seen. It's what they think is necessary. And when they're around their horse, they've got he's big, dull. I got to push and pull and knock on him and everything. And it's not true. And it's unfortunate for the horse, because the horse begins to fear the rider. And when people realize that it's them that causes the problem, here's a great example. Going on a trail ride. I used to be a bass fisherman. One of my favorite deals was sit at the boat ramp and watch people destroy boats. But go to the trailhead and watch people unload their horses and tack up their horses and do stuff like that. And then they'll say, well, he's always like this when he gets here, but it's just because he's trying to show off or something. Well, if he's calm at home, why isn't he calm here? The reason is you're calm at home, but when you get here are all these people and you don't want to be embarrassed, and you just end up embarrassing yourself. It's the horse is 1,000 times more sensitive to the rider than the rider is to the horse. The horse knows, that's what one of Ray's saying, the horse knows you. He knows you more than you know you. And because he has to save his life, he's got to decide whether or not you're going to kill him. And if he decides you're going to kill him, he's leaving. If he decides you're trouble, he's leaving. If he decides that you're a pretty good person, he's going to be your buddy. Well, there you go. So be calm. Be calm. That's all you have to think about.
It's sometimes easier said than done.
Well, you know something? One of the things I tell people is, like I said, you don't drop out of the womb trying to be a good horseman. And all the things that I teach are the result of experience. The fellow said to his buddy, said, man, you got really good judgment. He says, thank you. He said, well, where'd you get that judgment? He said, experience. Well, where'd you get the experience? He said, through bad judgment. So that's just how it works, I don't know. I think I'm losing my light here on your son.
You are. You're getting darker and darker.
Now let's see if that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little better.
A little bit, not bad. Yeah. Well, kind of got a halo. Well,
that's okay.
That's okay. We can work with that.
Yeah, it's better than it's better than you being in the dark, right?
I'll sit down and put it in my lap.
So actually, I think that last statement you said is doesn't just apply to horses. The whole, having those experiences and learning from them are probably key to a lot of things, not just horsemanship.
Well, I tell you what, I found that being a good horse owner, I'm not going to say good horseman because I'm not a good horseman, but being good to my horses has gotten me to be good to people. Because you begin to, it works. You don't see too many good horsemen that are jerks. You see a lot of jerks that aren't good horsemen, but you don't see too many people who are handy with a horse and love their horses and know how to treat their horses that are not, they're almost all good people. They're not dorks.
No. So you've mentioned Frank several times, and I thought we'd talk a little bit about him and how you got him and because it sounds like that's your horse, right? Like, so there's a special bond there. And he's in 2 of the pictures, I think, on the promo, right, that we did. So right. He's the one wearing the garland, and then you're roping with him too, right?
Yes. And his brother, half brother, is the one that's got his head down by my shoulder. That's Frank's country anthem. He was a 5-year-old world champion in 2012. Frank, when Don and I were in let's raise and sell Foxtrotters, period. I got in contact with a lady named Judy down in Missouri, and she found me some horses, found 3 for me. Actually found 2, and then one of them there was a second horse I bought. Anyway, I went down there because horses were $1,500, and a good Foxtrot trail horse would bring 4 or 5 up here. So I went down and got 3. And I went to this farm and I bought a amber champagne gelding, just gorgeous. I mean, just gorgeous. And I bought his dad, who had been a stallion until he was 5, and then he was gelded. And I bought him as a 6-year-old, and he was a very good horse. And he was a dark bay man. He was a nice. And then I went over to Charlie Hightower's place, and Charlie has had good horses forever, and he was a big Tennessee Walker guy too. And he had this horse, Frank's Wild and Wicked H, and he had it for sale. And so I went over to look at it and bought him. And he was a big old tall 3-year-old man. He was big and lanky, and so I put him in the trailer and came on home, and got back to the house and pulled in, and I said, let's see him, and pulled the first one off, and that was the Magnum horse, and he was the bay. Oh man, Mark, he's so beautiful. I pulled off the amber champagne. His name was Blue, and oh, I've never seen a horse so beautiful. That's the most beautiful. And I pulled out Frank, and she said, what the hell is that? I said, that's Frank. She said, I've never seen a horse that had that big. And he's not going to win any modeling. Okay, his proportions are good, but because he's built like he is, he'll never win model class. I can sit in the saddle and lean forward and not be able to touch between his ears. I mean, that's a long. He's a giraffe, big old head. My friend Ty, first time he saw, I said, "Man, Mark, if that horse's head was full of nickels, you'd be rich, man." Well, so I bought him because he was a son of Country Frank, who was a world grand champion. So I thought, well, can't be wrong. Well, I rode all these different horses. We were riding all these different horses, and I'd get Frank out and ride him. And he had been broke to ride, but he hadn't had anything done with him. So I spent some time. I spent a lot of time on halter breaking him and getting everything doing right. And the first time I got him and rode him off, he was square and foxtrotting like a champ. And I said, well, this is pretty nice. But the more I worked with him, the better I liked him. And a couple of my friends said, Mark, that horse right there, that's a real. He said, that's a real horse. He's because he's easy to train. He's easy to work with. He's easy to be around. I said, yeah, he is. And then we sold this horse. This lady and her husband came with her and picked the horse up. And he looked at. I was riding Frank in the arena, and he looked and he says, "Is that horse for sale?" I said, "Well, yeah, I guess he is. They're all for sale. Everything's for sale except my dog and my wife." And he said, "Well, price him to me." And I just doubled the price on the horse I just sold her because it's Frank, and he bought it. And I said, "Dang, I just lost my horse." But I had other horses, and he said, "Can you keep this horse for a while? I can't ride." He said, "I just had some surgery. I can't ride." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll keep him riding." So I kept riding him, and more I rode him. I had him about a month after I sold him. I'd ride him every day because this guy was cool. And so the guy calls me up and he says, "I'm coming to get that horse." I said, "Okay." Well, it's a sad dang day, man. So Frank loads up, and this guy's name was Bill. And I said, "Bill, I'll come over and show you," because he was a thoroughbred. He rode fire-breathing thoroughbreds. He could ride. And I said, "I'll come over and show you where all the buttons are." And he said, "Oh man, I appreciate that." So a week goes by, and I can remember plain as day. It was a Wednesday morning, 8:30. I'd fed everybody, and I told Don, I said, "I'm gonna call over there and go over and work with Frank and Bill." And something said, "Dad, I don't think I want to do that." So I went back and rode a couple horses, and about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I called over, and Bill's wife, Mary Ann, she answered the phone and said, "Hey, I'm going to come over there and work with Bill." And she said, "Mark, Bill died this morning at 8:30.
Oh,
I said, "No." She said, "Yep." So, after I said how sorry I wasn't, if there's anything I did, I went over, they were from California, I went over there and had to end up feeding her a fire breathers and for them till she got back. And I said, "Well, let me know if I'll pay you money back for Frank." She said, "Well, the kids have been riding him and they all like him and I think he'll stay here." Well, about 2 weeks after that, I get this call about 6 o'clock in the morning. And she said, "Mark's Mary Ann." I said, "Hey, what's up? You need some help?" She said, "If you want Frank, come get him." And I said, "Really?" She said, "I'm going to Missoula, go to Walmart and Costco, and if you'll come get him before I get back, I'd appreciate it." So I don't think the trailer tires never touched the ground, and went over and got him. And that was it. Frank was not leaving. I want to say this, but I was offered over $20,000 for him when he won the ranch horse deal. I said, "No, not Frank. Frank is staying with Mark." So he's 20 years old this year. And he and I have been in places that horses and men shouldn't be in. And we've done stuff that has been so much fun. He and I, quite frankly, if I think it, sometimes he's thought of it before I did. And I go, "Dang, I wish I'd have thought of that." But he's just a, if I take Frank anywhere, if I go do a demo someplace or I take him to give lessons, because he's a great lesson horse. I never put nobody gets to ride him, but good demo horse, he just gets surrounded by people. Kids come up and hug on him. If I was a single man looking for a woman, I'd take Frank everywhere, because women can't keep their hands off him. And which would do me a lot of good because they can keep their hands off me. But he's just been a special horse. And I was riding a horse one day, and Ty was over there, and we were riding. I was riding this rascal horse, and I was not. It wasn't. Things weren't working real good. And Ty was watching me, and he said, "Hey, Mark, yeah." He said, "Not every horse is Frank." I said, "Oh, yeah, you're right. I have to have a little bit different approach, because I could just show it to him one time and he could do it." So yeah, he's a special horse, and I think that of all the horses I've had and all the horses I've worked with, Frank's the easiest one. Like I went down today, I had to have him trimmed, and I went down to check his feet and make sure that he needed to be trimmed, and he's out with the ranch horses down the ranch, and there's 12 of them out there, and they're a quarter mile away. I whistle, and he just comes. "What more do you want?"
Yeah.
"What more do you want?" And he comes, and I don't have to put a halter on. I just open the gate and we walk and get in the barn. He just stands right there beside me, walks right beside me. One time at a horse show down in Wyoming, after the classes were over, what are you going to do in the evening after the classes are over? 5 o'clock, you go hose them down, make them nice, give them something to eat, give me something to eat. About 7 o'clock, it's time to go riding. Well, what are you going to do? I said, I can take a book with me, but I'd rather go ride Frank. So I'm walking between the stalls and this big indoor arena in Thermopolis. And I got Frank's halter rope just put up over the saddle, and we're just walking along, Bud's. Matter of fact, a guy named Bud came out of the arena, and he said, he kept walking. I stopped to say something to him, and Frank stops, and he said, "How did you teach him to do that?" And I said, "Well, I didn't have to teach him to do that, because he wants to be with me. He doesn't mind being with me. So I can walk around. When you get down to doctor calf, I don't put any hobbles or anything on him. Matter of fact, I have to keep him back away from me. But that's the kind of horse I wanted. And he's the guy who filled the bill. And if you ever get a chance to see him, you're going to go, I don't know. I've never seen a horse with a head that big and a neck that long, but daggone, he's a yeah, he's about 16, 116, 2.
Oh, wow, he's big.
He's a big guy. He is a big guy. But I'll tell you another thing, kind of funny. Like I said, I work with all these guys, quarter horses, and we were gathering up here, a place called the Bowling Ranch, and it's up on the side of the mountain. And it can be a pretty gnarly place to work. Well, we all start off. There's 5 of us from going up 2-track. We got to ride about 4 or 5 miles up there before we get started. And Frank is, they're all wanting to lope off. And Frank starts off. I'm in front. Frank starts off in his foxtrot. I mean, he's getting it. I mean, he's hammered. And I'm just sitting there. I mean, I could drink a Pepsi and eat a sandwich. And the guy behind me, he's a real hand. He said, "Mark," he said, "that is the most comfortable horse I've ever seen." I said, "Well, I can turn you on to somebody can sell you one." But that's what all those cowboys, man, I've never seen a horse move like that. That's because they never seen a foxtrotter.
So we just have a few minutes left, but I wanted to so you're talking about that story, and you briefly mentioned Yellowstone at the beginning, and if you watch the show, for those that are on, I do, you see, in that area, cowboys going and helping each other on ranches and all those things. So I'm taking it from some of this conversation that's what you and Frank do. Then you may not have your own cattle, but you go help other people when they need it.
Right. What we do. A friend of mine, Reed Trexler, he has a pretty good sized ranch here. We work with him. We don't work for him because he don't get paid. But my age, it's fun for me. But come March, we'll go to a branding twice a week, and all the different places, all the different ranches. And when it's time to gather, everybody comes together, goes brings the cattle in. They'll help brand, they help doctor, they help to pour on the wormer and everything. So yeah, it's a community affair, and quite frankly, that last scene where they came in Yellowstone and they branded and they had the band and all that kind of stuff, that's a little over the top. I haven't ever been to one like that, but I've been to a lot of brandings where when it's over with, there's a large amount of beer and barbecue. Then of course, now up here, being a son of the South, barbecue is a noun. Up here, barbecue is a verb, and they barbecue hamburgers. And how the hell you do a barbecue a hamburger? Well, they put that on a grill. So, but you're always going to have tri-tip. You're going to have steaks. I went to one where we didn't brand, but we cut a bunch of rodeo. They're going to be saddle broncs and bareback horses, and when we cut a bunch of those, made them geldings. And man, he had the best feed yet. He had rib eyes, and it was a great deal. But that's the common thing. You go to a branding, you get fed, you get all the beer you can drink, and get great camaraderie. It takes usually the brandings. So, the most I've ever been to a branding where we did it one day was about 120. But usually it's a thing where you'll break it into several days because you may have cattle spread all over the countryside that you need to go. But that's just the way things work. It's a lot of fun. And I recommend it to everybody.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful community, kind of everyone helping each other out. And
it is.
Yeah. And obviously beautiful country as well.
Absolutely. I tell people I live where people vacation.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Well, I really appreciate this we could go on forever, but I don't want to take up too much of your time. This has been really interesting. I really appreciate this conversation and you doing this. One little story I'll tell everyone before we go. So as I mentioned at the beginning, Mark and I have never met. We've chatted here and there, and we were chatting about something else. And I mentioned that we were going to start doing these, and you were so nice and encouraging that, this would go okay. And then of course I conned you into coming on here as one of our first guests. But I just really appreciate how nice you were and encouraging you were when, we've crossed paths, but for you to do that and go out of your way to say those things, it was very nice. And so I really appreciate you coming on and doing this.
I enjoyed it, and I think what you're doing is wonderful. And I hope that more people will start to watch, because this is the way we're going to promote Foxtrotter. People understanding the variety. I mean, endurance, ranch horse stuff. Pretty soon you'll have somebody else on doing who knows what, dressing up like Mickey Mouse. I don't know, but it's the way we get Foxtrotters in front of the public. It's a good deal. I appreciate you doing this too.
Yeah, well, there's so many people doing such amazing things with their Foxtrotters, and I think connecting those and making people feel comfortable doing those different things will be great. And I love the stories of listening to you ranch up there. We might have to do another one again and talk more about that. So,
well, the only thing I have to do is let me know. As my wife, I told my wife, says, Mark, don't ramble.
Well, I can tell you the next time I'm up there for business, because I occasionally travel up there, I'll be giving you a call.
Oh, please do. Hey, if you can arrange it to any time after March, we can put you on a horse and get you out there.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be a lot of fun. So
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate you spending a little time this evening. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.
I will. Kentucky's playing at 7:00 against Vanderbilt, and that's my team.
All right. Well, very good. Well, good luck.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.